right. Good morning. I'm with Brian Goldner, Chief of Exploration at Talon Metals. Hey, Brian, how are you this morning?
Good. Good to see you, Robert.
Good to see you too. So definitely a lot to talk about. I think 3 news releases in January. We'll focus on the last one, the most recent one. But tell us, how does it feel to be a real mining company now?
It feels great. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's great. You can tell I'm in a hotel room right now. I'm actually in Michigan. We had our first kind of leadership meeting, so getting the teams together and talk about how we go forward from here.
Okay, so one of the big goals here in 2026 is to find a new mine, to find a new ore body up there, huh?
Yeah, so we'll be splitting exploration between Minnesota and Michigan. We have a number of targets in Michigan that we want to progress. I don't know if we have enough rigs. We might have to get some contract rigs to help out, but we're going to hit it pretty hard. This is going to be one of the biggest exploration programs that we've had as Talon.
Wow. Okay. So the weather is a little harsher, up there in the UP. So I guess that you always wait until the spring thaw is done. And so that usually means you don't start to drill until June. Is that right?
Exactly. It's something that I don't think a lot of people really understand how different winter is up here. It's no colder than Minnesota. Honestly, I think Minnesota is colder, but they get a ton of snow over here, and I mean, I'm talking like a lot of snow. I heard there was 14 feet of base here, and you can see it when you drive around in the parking lots. There's just mountains of snow that have been piled up. So it's a big issue actually for doing work out in the bush. You have to keep all of your roads plowed like daily, and it just keeps snowing. So for us working in Minnesota in the winter is a lot easier because we use ice roads. So there's a natural kind of switch where we can take advantage of winter in Minnesota, and then in the springtime, late spring, early summer, we send the rigs out to Michigan where they can work in nice conditions.
Okay, very good. A couple of other just corporate questions I'll just toss at you, and if you don't know the answer, then you can just move on. A lot of people asking about doing, like an uplisting in the US. Is that something that has been talked about, a little bit more here in the new year, or is that something that you're still not sure about?
Yeah, I think it's something that obviously needs to get looked into, but I don't know where it stands right now.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about the latest news release from Tamarack, the Vault Zone. I guess let's sort of start, higher up, and we'll go to depth. So hole 67 is an interesting one because you hit a wide interval of this stringer zone. Tell us about the stringer zone. What does stringer mean? Why is it called the stringer zone? And what are you seeing in the drill core?
Yeah, so stringer, typically means kind of thin veins, but a lot of them. And in this hole in 567, it's very similar to 565, but the difference is there's a lot more of it, and it goes higher. It continues to go higher. So this was kind of a happy little accident. We were planning the hole to hit a target down below. It was a small 5-meter step out up here because this wasn't the original plan. But mineralization started coming in like 20-25 meters higher, and the full thickness was, I think it was 35 meters. So I mean, this just kind of highlights in the Vault Zone where we're still wrapping our heads around this. We're still getting surprises, which is really good, and we're pulling it up as well as continuing to explore deeper. We're able to pull it higher, which I think is really important. Mineralization looks good. It's in that press release I did put in the old 565 just so you could see what that core looked like compared to the new stuff. And when you look at the new hole, you can see that there's more kind of the more massive sulfides. So we still think the stringer zone is what's feeding, the larger pools down below, but we clearly need to get more drilling in this area.
Okay, so is the stringer zone more copper, rich than the other parts, or is that something I just made up?
Well, we don't have assays yet for 567, so that's the one that I'd have to wait until we get the new assays to really confirm. But the vault in general has a fair bit more copper than what Tamarack is used to having.
Okay, yeah. So like hole 563B was about 4 to 3 copper to nickel. And so that's about the ratio that we're seeing in all the holes so far. Is that right?
Well, that I think we have the assays for 563B in this press release. It's just over 1 to 1. So there's the copper for this interval was 12.6. The nickel is 9.6.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying, like a 4 to 3 ratio.
No, 4 to 3. Yeah, sorry, I thought you said 4 to 1. 4 to 3. Yes.
Yeah. 4 to 3 ratio. Yeah, I'm pretty sure my math is right there. 12 to 9, right? Yeah, but the core for 567 does look really good, and obviously the core for 563 looks exceptional too. So let's sort of work our way down. So 567 we talked about. Let's talk about 566, and that's a pretty big step out there in 566.
Yeah, it's a 16-meter step out, and it's a really solid hit. That's one of the things that I'm quite keen on is doing these step outs to start adding some size, and the mineralization looks good. So we'll have to wait for assays, but so far everything's kind of holding together.
Okay, and then 563C and 563B. So what are the indications that you're getting? I mean, can you learn anything about those two intercepts, about how laterally extensive this could be? Is it getting narrower in certain areas? Is it getting wider in other areas?
So not yet. On 563C, that's another 16-meter step out. So we've got 3 holes now that are stepping out 16 meters. It's essentially a 3-point problem at this point. The 2 intercepts that we have there are about 8-9 meters, and then the original 563, the top one was about 19. So it seems like we're not getting the same 19-meter thickness, which is kind of expected. We're testing the edges of these plates, so you'd expect it to thin down a bit. But I've been really happy with, if you take a 16-meter step out and you're still hitting 8 meters of what looks like vault style mineralization, that's a really good result in my mind.
Okay. Is there sort of a goal here at this, at this side of the vault zone? I guess we call it the southern side of the CGO. Is there a goal to eventually be able to show the continuity, between each pod? I mean, the idea is that there is some sort of a fluid pathway in between the pods. Is that right?
Yeah, and I do think they will connect up. The way I've been thinking about this is the sulfides are coming from up top, I think, draining down. You have the stringer zone, which ends up in a pool around the 250 intercept, where it sills out. So it's sitting on top of the CGO because it can't get into the CGO. Whereas the melted sediments, it can push those out of the way. It overfills that ledge, and then it drains down again and forms the 563. So it's kind of like a Plinko game, where it's just plinkoing down. And the question is, how much sulfide went, and where did it continue to go? Is 563 the final step? I don't think it is. I think I think we're going to find, if we drill more, I think we're going to find that it continues to plinko its way down, and ideally there's a plunge pool at the bottom where it does finally stop.
So ideally, somewhere at depth, it could be another 100 meters, it could be another 300 meters. There's going to be a pool that could possibly be larger than any of these pods that we're seeing so far.
Yeah, I mean that's the model. That's the idea. So, and you think about you had got your CGO coming in vertically. It's heating up the country rock. That partially melted sediments in contact with the CGO. That's the environment that we're looking for. So as long as we can stay in that environment, I think we have a shot of continuing to push this mineralization down and apparently up, as in the case of 567.
Yeah, 567 is a little bit of a happy surprise, as you said. I'm really curious to see what that grades, that 35 meters grades, because you have some massive sulfides, in there. You have the stringers, you have some less massive, I guess. You have I guess we'd call them semi-massive, or like 10% sulfides or something. I'm curious, why did you not put the sulfide content in this news release?
I'm not entirely sure.
It just it doesn't say the amount of sulfides. It just says massive and stringers, and
okay.
it's just words.
Yeah, I'd have to check.
Okay. Because that was a little bit of a change from the last few news releases. But I'm super curious to see the assays on hole 67. And I mean, if that matches up to some of the other holes, that's going to be pretty extraordinary for the scale that's possible here, just on this one side of the vault.
Yeah, and then I think we need to look at it in a plane. If it is a waterfall coming down, we're exploring at depth. Well, we should really start looking east and west as well, because just because it's happening here doesn't mean it's not happening other ways to the east and west.
Yeah, exactly. So right now you're just on one side of the CGO, and if we think about it in 3D, it could theoretically wrap around, right?
Yeah, and you see that in the main zone, you have two limbs of massive sulfides sitting on both sides of the CGO. So as those kind of descend to the south and it curls around, we are exploring one side of the CGO. We haven't looked at the other one yet. I've talked about this before, but I think it's really important to know that these are the deepest holes that we have drilled, and there is so much wide open space in this area at depth, because the original drilling was drill through, hit the massive sulfide to the main zone to go 30 meters past and then stop. And that made a lot of sense for us at the time. But now that we know that there's mineralization descending down deeper, we need to rethink our depths on all of these holes. And the good news is we have a lot of open holes, so we can go in and just extend the hole without drilling the top 600 meters. It's really easy for us to extend these holes down to depth now.
Okay, so the plan is to keep stepping out, laterally, along each pod, the 566 pod, the 563 pod, and just keep stepping out, and then also to drill some additional holes to depth. Now, would these be completely brand new holes, or would these be extensions of existing ones?
No, I don't like to redo work, so I would just open up the cap on one of the existing holes and extend it down. We got holes that are already down 600 meters, so we'll take advantage of that.
Okay. And then when we get to the other side of the CGO, because you have a whole the whole northern side with no drilling, is that on the agenda for 2026?
It is on the agenda for 2026. Yes. There's a few things that we want to do. We want to drill deep, so we do have some holes that have gone deep, and we want to push them deeper. I'm thinking like hole 250. That went about 1 kilometer. It'd be nice to tack on another 300 meters because that one did end in intrusion. So you're still in the environment, and if we can get a hole down deep, you can run borehole EM, and it looks out. We saw 563 from 50 meters away, which is pretty far for us. we really need to focus on the vault as it is right now, and start trying to link together these pods. Once that's done, though, then taking some shots on the other side just to get down into the area to run borehole EM, and then the empty anomaly to the east. I'm dying to go over there and see what that looks like and get a hole into that. So we've got a pretty substantial wish list for this drill. And then you include Michigan. So Boulder Dash and some of the other targets, I think we're going to be hitting that pretty hard starting in June. So it's going to be a busy year.
Okay, yeah, you guys do have a full plate. So you have 5 rigs at Talon, but I know not all 5 are running. I think one was getting worked on. How many are working right now at Tamarack?
Yeah, so we have 3 that are running right now. The 4th is fully operational. We just don't have the staff right now to run it. And then the other rig is getting retrofitted. So in the fall, we sent it out to get completely redone. This was a 2008 model rig, and so new engine, upgrade the power pack. Just do a really nice refresh to it, so it's ready to hit the ground running for essentially the summer program. So we'll have all 5 rigs available. Staffing is a question, and that's where it may make sense to just bring in contractor rigs if we need to expand substantially. That's the way to do it.
Do you have a contractor that you have a lot of confidence in, that you've used in the past, and that they do quality work?
Yeah. There's a number of them. We actually brought a contractor in for a few months in Michigan last year, and that worked well. So we had 3 of our rigs, and then we brought in a contractor rig as well. With Michigan, it's a short season, so you got to get in there and get the meters that you can before the snow starts up again. So it makes a lot of sense to keep our rigs at a stable level that we can maintain operating here and in Minnesota. And then in Michigan, we can bulk it up with short time 3-month contracts.
Okay.
And then the core is just full of core. There's core everywhere, which is great. I love that.
Oh yeah, do you have enough places to put all the core?
No, not even close.
You have to buy like a new barn or something?
Yeah.
Well, the good news is there's plenty of space there in Minnesota. You should be able to find some shacks or some barns to store the core. So on the exploration front, because a couple of shareholders did ask me, where do you focus in the UP? Is it just at Boulder Dash, or where else do you go? Is there a list of like the projects that you want to hit this summer?
Yeah, there is. Boulder Dash is the priority. We really need to find more material for the Humboldt mill to keep feeding the mill, and Boulder Dash has the best opportunity for that based on what we've drilled so far. But I'm the first to say, just because you have something exciting doesn't mean you can't or you shouldn't drill exploration holes. So there are some prospects that I think need a little bit of attention to progress in the pipeline. Clipper is one that I've always wanted to get to. We were trying to get to that when we drilled Boulder Dash, and the rigs got stuck there for the year. There's a couple other prospects, but basically Clipper, I'd say Rolling Lake needs a little more work. And then there's some ones that are a little further down in the pipeline that are drill ready now. And any hit on any of those kind of changes the plan. So it's an exciting time when you have such a bevy of drill ready projects and prospects. It's exciting because any one hit and things get really wild.
Yeah, it's a big summer there in Michigan, and you're not the only company that's drilling. There's another company I cover that's about to start to test some targets there as well. Tell us about the trip to Washington. You went to the Smithsonian, you took some pictures. Yeah,
it was a great trip. As I always say, as a science nerd, it's I just can't believe that we've been able to work with the Smithsonian and get some of the discovery in there. I can't wait to see it through the glass. It's going to be so cool. But it was a great trip. They gave us a 2-hour tour. We got to go backstage in the Smithsonian, see the kind of the vault and see some of the samples that really no one else gets to see. That was very cool. And then we did the handover and got to walk around. And I would recommend everybody go to the Smithsonian. It's just mind blowing, the stuff that they have.
Yeah, it's one of those places that as Americans, I think most of us don't appreciate it. I mean, there's 340 million of us. I don't even know if 10% of us have been to the Smithsonian. So yeah, this is a little bit of an advertisement for the Smithsonian. It's one of the greatest places in the US, and it's something everybody should see. You know, and even if you're not an American, you should go to the Smithsonian. There's some really cool stuff there. You can definitely spend a couple of days. You can spend a couple of days there. So on a corporate level, a lot has changed at Talon since the end of last year, Brian. How is it to be a bigger company, have a new CEO, and like how is the team working with some new team members?
It's really good. Like I said, I'm in Michigan now. I got to go to the mine site, go to the mill. There's so much excitement. That's one thing that really struck me. One of the weird things is people coming up and saying, "Hey, I saw you on YouTube. I saw you on Robertson's stuff." It's people are really excited about the prospectivity and being able to maybe find another mine. The new CEO Darby is fantastic. He's been the leader here for a decade. He really understands nickel mining, all of that. So that gives us a real leg up. And then Henry is still part of the team. He's the executive chairman. So I think we've bolted on the Michigan capability, the mining capability, which we can now take that into Tamarack as we continue with our planning at Tamarack. We have a decade of experienced miners and mill people who can look at the plans and say, this is a good idea, this is a really dumb idea, and we can make changes on the fly, which is priceless.
So you're in charge of the exploration. Do you report to Darby, and do you guys have a conversation about what you're doing now?
Yeah. So I report to Darby, and just weekly. Well, we talk pretty much every day, but weekly reports and just let them know how things are going and what the plan is going forward. So that was a big part of this week, and then we're doing our planning session next week for the Michigan project. So all the geos are coming together, and we're talking about basically every single drill hole that we would want to drill, start scheduling it, start phasing them in, and ensuring that logistics are in place, because that's where you can get caught, is logistics, road restrictions, things like that. They can move around a fair bit, so we need to make sure that we have a really solid plan to get the logistics down, and then once the rig is there, then it's just drilling, which we got that in the bag.
Very good. Yeah, I'm gonna have to speak with Darby. We're gonna have to do an interview with Darby at some point this year. So investors always want to know news flow timelines. How are the assays turning around these days? We definitely had some slow turnaround times in 2025. So what can you tell us about the cadence of the assays that you see in 2026?
Yeah, so assay times have improved. That's an exciting development on our side. We are also rushing some of these massive sulfide intervals, so we'll have the opportunity to put releases out probably a little quicker. There's also a lot going on though. So as we do integrate the two teams, we went from Talon was about 75 employees, and now we're 502. So I would ask for a little bit of patience as we get this all kind of sorted out in the next month or so. But having 3 rigs and having rocks at the lab, I think gives us a lot of material to work with on press releases.
How many holes are in the labs? The lab right now?
Boy, nice. Yeah, five or six.
5 or 6. Okay.
And part of that is we're doing a pretty intensive geochemical study because the fault is so different, and some of the rocks are a little different. We're getting full suite chemical analysis that has all the trace elements and all the, it's like 80 elements that we're getting to really help tease apart the geochem and the geologic story in the vault. That's going to take a bit of time, but being able to go back through the pulps and grab material to get some of that full suite chemistry was really helpful.
Okay. Very, very good. So 5 or 6 holes in the lab, 3 rigs turning right now, but a 4th one is available. You're just short of staff.
Yep.
A 5th one is getting worked on and getting ready for this summer in Michigan. It's getting a full upgrade. And there's a lot of drill targets on the agenda at Vault and at Tamarack in 2026, and obviously you're planning drill targets in Michigan for this summer, but Boulder Dash is obviously at the top of that list. So Brian, I'll give you the final word here. Anything that you like to say or anything I didn't ask you?
No, I think you covered it all. I guess one of the things I'm quite excited about in the Vault Zone is this, like the gold and silver is just so much higher than what we're seeing anywhere else in Tamarack. This last intercept had, was it 6 meters at like 13 grams gold, 70 grams, 75 grams silver. So I think there's a lot more to unpack in the vault. I'm really excited for this geochem program to really dive in and start trying to tease this out. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun seeing gold and silver values like that on top of the copper and the nickel. Yeah, it's exciting. I think we're onto something here.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. Yeah, the gold and silver values are pretty cool. I mean, gold values above 10 grams per ton and silver values above 60 grams per ton. That's what you'd see in a high-grade gold mine, not
Right.
a nickel copper.
Not a byproduct.
Yeah, not a byproduct. Okay, so I do have one more question for you. The mood in the US now with mining in the US and what the administration is doing. I mean, obviously, like this is, like an Operation Warp Speed for, minerals and mining in the US. And obviously Talon is in the center of this vortex as one of the few mining companies in the United States. How does that make you feel, and what are the conversations that you're having internally? Because obviously, like, if we were talking 10 years ago and you had a mine in Michigan that was set to run out of ore in the next 2 or 3 years, it would be pretty dire, dark conversation, because how do you find something and permit it that quickly, right? But now this is a whole new ball game.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's one of the things I think I'm really excited about for Talon is it's nickel now and nickel later. If you want domestic nickel, look no further than Talon. And I think that message is resonating.
Very good. All right, Brian Goldner, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thanks, Robert. Good to talk to you.